Morning, everyone. How many of you are involved in, let's say, an upper secondary service group? I know some of our own CS members in here. Whoa, whoa, so many people. Okay, wonderful. This talk is mostly for you. This talk is about what we can fix about service, because there are a couple aspects that we're trying to encourage in our community that I don't think that we're doing too well. In a lot of our service groups, our main goal is to try to encourage people to explore new perspectives and ideas about groups that they might not have seen before. And how do you persuade people to engage with new perspectives without forcing them into a service group? Our theme this afternoon is about globalization, about emphasizing our need to think globally and act locally. And as a service group, we have very noble intentions about trying to take our own time and use it to help a different group. It's so that we can take our own time and make a positive contribution in our own communities. Service comes with a noble idea that, and we truly have great service programs around the world and in our school as well. And it's very valuable because we can get students involved in these issues. We can get them exposure to perspectives that they've never seen. And we can get them experience, which is what I think is most important about service. These are some of the experiences that people in our own service groups have come to. We've worked on trips to autism centers. We've went to autism centers to work with children in them and to get to learn how to interact with them better. We've also created our own mini lessons. So what is wrong with service? Why am I talking to you today? Service is something that we're supposed to be willingly volunteering for, but it's becoming a requirement in more and more places. For example, it's becoming a requirement in so many of, from our student perspective, so many of our college applications, so many of our DP and IB curriculum requirements, and it's not limited to only our school. It's something that is become a requirement for many, many students around the world. Now, this might not necessarily be a bad thing on its own, but a lot of people feel compelled to join service not because they want to help people or to work on a community that they care about, but because it's something they're required to do. They don't need to do it. They just need to finish the hours required to do it. We're making service into a checkbox rather than an innate passion that we can develop. These are some just more sad statistics about service in our current state of service. After COVID-19, our service groups have declined, and as many as 50% of people after they leave high school and start working, they don't have time, they don't have the free time for service. And this is a study by, I think, Longevity at Stanford. Right. And we also carry a lot of unrealistic expectations for service. Us in the audience, most of us are like 14-year-olds, 17-year-olds, and in high school, and none of us are going to understand the real complexities of the issues we deal with. We, as service coordinators and as members, we're not going to understand how to properly interact with, let's say, autistic children in our own group, or work with people with cancer. We don't fully understand these problems when we enter service, and this comes with some certain issues. Like, we won't fully gauge what they actually need, and we might run the risk of being culturally insensitive. Oh, this is made-up statistic by me. We won't fully understand what we're dealing with. And I have two examples to present this. There's a group called Save the Children in Ethiopia, who is an NGO, who's working on helping out service groups and helping out the people in Ethiopia. But they've created a dependence on their services. And when service is supposed to be about us giving to someone else, it is now creating a dependency that they now have to rely on. Their local infrastructure no longer works very well. We also have examples of Western NGOs in Haiti post the 2010 earthquakes. After the earthquake, a lot of NGOs descended on the country trying to help out, donating food, donating toys, donating water sources. But we didn't understand the cultural sensitivity around the issues. And a lot of the food that these NGOs donated went to waste, and also caused stomach problems because it was just not sensitive to the local cultures involved. What can we do about service, about bringing about local global solutions? Because it seems like every example we have leads to more problems. A service group cleaning up a local waterway is not going to solve the global issue of pollution. plastic production or landfills. So we need a new way to define how we talk about service, because these raise the question of, are we doomed to never actually understand the people we're supposed to help? Or how can we ever solve the major issues that we face? Maybe we don't completely understand these issues. Maybe we, as high schoolers or as adults, we don't fully understand the communities that we serve. But I think it's still very important to go out there and gain perspective about service, to go out in the world and interact with the communities that we try to serve. Because a lot of times when we think about service, we think of it as too big of a global issue. We aren't going to solve the issues of landfills or the issues of mass pollution on our own. We aren't going to solve the issues of pollution, nor are we going to solve the issues of climate change. These aren't things that we can do on our own as individuals. And a lot of times, this has become a disconcerting reality that leads to us just not trying at all, not caring about trying to help out the community because we feel like we can make no impact. But I want to raise a example and an anecdote from my own life where I found a lot of value. I got into trying to create service initiatives from a service trip with an Eagle Scout called Zero Way. He graduated a couple years ago. And one of my experiences in that service opportunity was going there and interacting with a woman who ran away from home, started her own business, and raised an autistic child on her own. And she detailed a lot of her struggles about how raising her kid and how her kid often felt unincluded and not understood by the people in her kid's local community. So I think what I learned from that experience is we shouldn't approach service from the massive global scale that we've come to learn about. I think we should approach service in the smallest scale that we can, in our own lives, in our own context, because if we think about pollution and environmental disasters, we are going to feel small and insignificant compared to that issue. But if we think about a smaller issue, pick an issue from your own life and develop that into some kind of service. Like what I talked about earlier about that woman caring about her autistic son and trying to get him the understanding and help that he needs. These are some examples of some of the initiatives that we started in our own group to try to create more awareness. This is part of an animation piece that we're working on. It's still in the works, but we're planning to present it sometime in April. Oh, sorry. But I think the most important aspect of service is narrowing it into your own worldview and not something major and massive that we have to deal with. It's about narrowing it into that one small example of a woman in an autism center working with her autistic child and teaching us how to better interact with kids and how to better interact with the people in our community. Because that's the best way we ourselves can gain perspective. And that's also the best way that we can approach our global issues. We often think of service as, again, trying to solve this major issue that we'll never be able to complete ourselves. But if we think of think of it in a small unit, like we're trying to make it so that that woman's child doesn't feel the need to feel ostracized or feel uncomfortable in her community. If we think about local solutions to help out that one kid or help out that one community that we care about, I think that's the way we should approach service. Thank you very much.